The worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
Fucking hey, man. Glad to see you guys.
Good evening. 150 days since the worst single act of political violence since the Civil War.
January 6th was worse than 9/11.
Worst act of political violence since the Civil War.
The likes of which I don't think has existed since the Civil War.
I think we're in the most perilous point in time since the advent of the Civil War.
I do too.
The worst attack against America's democracy probably since the Civil War.
Unprecedented, at least since the Civil War.
The worst attack on our republic since the Civil War.
The fact is that we faced on January 6th the most serious attack on our democracy probably since the Civil War. This is as fraught a July 4th as the nation has had really since the Civil War. I mean, we have questions that we really haven't asked probably since the Civil War.
The most destructive thing to American democracy is probably since the Civil War.
Nothing comes close this side of the Civil War.
6 months since the worst attack on American democracy, arguably, probably since the Civil War, and it's still not over.
Now, the White House says the president's also going to say that these laws they're trying to enact in Texas are the biggest threat to voting rights since the Civil War.
Literally, we're facing the most significant test of our democracy since the Civil War. That's not hyperbole. Since the Civil War.
In calling the wave of state voting laws that are upon us the greatest threat to our democracy since the Civil War, his talking about voting rights, the way he did it and the way he defined it,
the most significant test of our democracy since the Civil War.
It's not just another layer of rhetoric.
All of this is a piece of the same puzzle, John. They are all on the right creating the biggest threat to our democracy since the Civil War.
The biggest threat to our constitutional republic since the Civil War.
The worst challenge to our democracy since the Civil War.
You and I have had this conversation for well over a month where I've talked about it being the most perilous point since the Civil War.
But at any rate,
hey guys,
I can't for ice cream.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hey, guys, get the light. Get the light. You can't turn his light while he's working. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. Today is Tuesday. It's January the 6th, Insurrection Day, or the day that democracy almost fell. Yeah, you just heard me yelling off camera. I wasn't yelling at anyone. I was just making fun of the people at the FBI that just did a news hit with Kash Patel. And in the meantime, some lady on a headphone is like yelling in the background, like, you can't fix his light while he's on the Fox News. Meanwhile, we all heard it, so that's kind of funny. Yeah, we're going to do some dunking today because that's what needs to be done. It's January the 6th, the day the statute of limitation runs out for a lot of things. I want to talk about the January 6th pipe bomb. I want to talk about Dan Bongino declaring war. You damn right he did. Yeah, tough guy stuff coming out. We're so excited. We love to see people who talk big shit for a long time, then joined the government, did nothing, and then came out, and now they're back to talking. So that's exciting. We're going to take a couple of dunks on Fox News. I don't take a ton of pleasure in that. But I do think it's worth pointing out that if you're pushing back against the narrative that Fox News is putting out there, all you're doing is saying that people who are whores are acting like whores. And by that, I mean attention whores, people who are willing to do certain things for money. And I've got some evidence. Probably one of my favorite bits of evidence is when somebody who used to work at Fox News tells you, oh, I used to be a whore, but now I'm not a whore. Believe me. Trust me. How could I be a whore? Because I'm telling you the truth now, even though I used to do it for money then. I think that's fascinating. And then we have all these great examples of that. And I also think we should talk about the company you keep. And all that says is, if you're going to find yourself in the company of people who are not honest, and you are going to find yourself in the company of people that most of us would look at and find disgusting, we got some questions about you. And I think those are fair. I think you could legitimately ask those questions. And that's not wrong. We're going to have a lot of fun today. Can you guys tell? I did a space last night on Twitter. I don't do that all the time. Twitter, X, whatever. I don't do it all the time. But occasionally we do, and whenever we do, I think we have a pretty good time. I think the dialogue is fun. It's totally uncensored. It's just regular people talking the way you might if you got a bunch of dudes and ladies together in your cul-de-sac or on your block and had a block party and everybody had a couple of beers and then just kind of just started, saying the things they think. The upside of being on X is that a lot of people can hide their face, so they're not going to lose their job over it. And some of the stuff we talked about is going to be covered in today's program as well. So if you guys are just joining me for the first time, if you've never seen this program released before, make sure you guys are supporting us in the places you can. The easiest place to do it is on the replay, which is going to be on Spotify. That's KyleSeraphinShow.com. Send it to a friend if you would. If you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on X or YouTube, make sure you like the video. We only get paid for Rumble and YouTube though. So if you guys want a better user experience and you want to join our fantastic chat, that's the place to do it. Subscribe to the channels, like them. We're going to do a quick sponsor read for the folks over at Undertac, which is a great company making outstanding underwear. I guess that's kind of in the news right now since we had some dudes get to go and put their undies on and then go to the thing that they have been training for their whole life, special operators, knocking it down in Venezuela. And then we're going to go through and have a pretty fun show, including some things that I think are relevant. I've got some documentation from the pipe bomb case, which congratulations. If you were the actual pipe bomber, unless somebody decides to prove conspiracy, you just outran the statute of limitations and you have Dan Bongino and Cash Patel to thank for it. So we're going to have that much spice. Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good today. Hopefully you are too. If you guys are feeling good because you are wearing the right underwear, great. If not, check out my friends over at Undertac. It's UNDERTAC.com. Use the promo code Kyle20. Right up front, that's the deal. Kyle20 will save you 20% site-wide on anything you choose to do. We got Valentine's Day coming up. Making sure that you're prepared for one of these holidays where the right gear actually matters. What does that mean? Having your grundle properly kitted up is not a bad idea. Let's be serious. We can avoid things like chocolates and flowers, and you can get down to the things that you might be wearing when things get a little less formal. How about the folks over at Undertac? They're premium tactical underwear designed for your mission. Real special forces guys operating in Africa were wearing these things. They're insanely comfortable. They're breathable. They're naturally antibacterial. These are the pair of underwear that I save in my drawer for when I want to wear comfy underwear. Is that a weird thing? Do any of you guys have like favorite undies, favorite socks, and you kind of hold on to them? Undertac is actually both of those in my drawer. I'm like, today's going to be a workout where I need a little extra pep. Bam, I slap them on, I get working. Guys, they've got a hidden E&E pocket, which is escape and evasion. That means you can hide a little piece of cash or microfilm or a handcuff key, depending on where your night goes, I guess, depending on what kind of life and relationship you have. Check out the guys over at Undertac. They got a good sense of humor. They make funny things. I actually had my mother-in-law call me out for one of their ad reads, and she was like, are you saying that doing dinner with in-laws is like getting shot at? I was like, lady, my dear, please, it's just copy. This is how we sell some stuff. Sometimes we just have a little bit of a joke. So anyway, good to know that my mother-in-law sometimes listens, and maybe she'll check out Undertac for my father-in-law. So there you go. Undertac.com, promo code Kyle20. That's my name, Kyle, and the numbers 2 and 0. Link in the show description. Let's get today kicked off. I think that we should start off with fun things, stupid things, and let's start off with a video before we get too deep into the weeds. Isn't that the right idea? I think it is. I think we should do things that shake us to our very core. What is that even about, folks? Oh, where in the world is my clip? There's my clip. Let's do things that shake us to our very core. Little retrospective before we talk about going to war.
I do want to take you out to a story that we brought you a bit earlier, as we do have this post coming in, some calling it cryptic, from the Deputy Director for the FBI, Dan Bongino. I do want to read it to you in full. This is just a portion of it here. He says, during my tenure here as the Deputy Director of the FBI, I have repeatedly relayed to you that things are happening that...
Did he do it all caps? It's very difficult to read that. It's like a street sign. I mean, that's so hard. Come on, Dan. Right, I'm going to read it instead of that geezer. During my tenure here as Deputy Director of the FBI, I've repeatedly relayed to you that, excuse me, things are happening that might not be immediately visible. But they are happening, like photosynthesis, I suppose. The director and I are committed to stamping out public corruption and the political weaponization of both law enforcement and intelligence operations. It is a priority for us, but what I have learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into the aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core. Now, this is the key line. What I've learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into these aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core. Not the core, my core. Because you could just say the core, and it would be generalized, but that's actually he's feeling this in his tummy. We cannot...
Yep. First of all, he didn't all caps it. That was actually, let's be fair, that was Fox News making some sort of weird all caps boomer associated piece. And so they brought that thing up. That's not the way that it actually was originally listed. But shock down to his core. Just because you don't see things happening doesn't mean that they're not happening. I guess the thing that we didn't see happening was he was hiding all the Epstein files, right? I'm not just saying this because it's funny. It is funny. I'm not just trying to dunk on the guy. All I'm saying is I want to hold people accountable to their own words. It's the same thing I did with Donald Trump yesterday. If you spend 10 years talking about how you're the president of peace and how you don't do regime change and how you don't want to go in and start endless wars and you don't want to go into other people's business and meddle and you'd rather use like a smarter way to go about it and you're the guy that gets things and moves things unexpectedly and then you have the temperament that nobody understood. Those are all Donald Trump things. Well, then I want to take you at your word. I just want to look at you and go, okay, fine. The general assumption is that you're just not lying about everything you say. And so if you tell us that things are happening behind the scenes, you just have to wait. And the thing that is happening is apparently you're going to arrest a guy who's a black autistic brony and has nothing to do with the government after literally years of banging on about how there was a conspiracy to come after the American people. That the people who supported Donald Trump in 2020 and showed up on January the 6th of 2021 were set up by some sort of Fed operation. And then there's fairly credible evidence. I'll use those things just like sort of belittling what Steve Baker and his team did, what Joe Hanneman did, what Armitage over on X has been doing. When you talk about somebody being involved in actually doing the really scary stuff, going after Americans, and setting them up using mechanisms of government, and it is my contention that there are multiple people that were involved in January 6th, but it doesn't have to be a ton of them. I think somebody from Capitol Police, maybe a couple of people there. I should put my fingers on the screen here if I'm counting them out. I love to do the counting out things if you guys haven't figured that out. Capitol Police involved. Members of Congress, possibly Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, or someone who was delegated, involved. Most likely. This is just where the evidence shows. We've got ATF likely involved based on the movement of one of their officers. Now, took over for Yogananda Pittman and then disappeared. Had to retire with no warning. Okay, what else? A member of Tom Massey's staff now works at the FBI, and he seems to be controlling narrative. Marshall Yates, right? Sean Benedict is the ATF guy. We'll name names when we have them. And the guy who's found the bomb ended up being the conduit of information between Capitol Police and the FBI was clearly involved as well. Even if they didn't plan it, which I'm pretty confident they didn't. I don't think the FBI was involved in planning. I think they did their job, which is that they went out there and they acted like something was happening. They pulled guys like me off surveillance when we were getting close to what was most likely the right area to be focused in on. And now they've been successful. If they can hide from conspiracy charges, then the statute of limitations ran out at midnight. Why would that be? Like, why is that the world we're living in right now? That's not fair. That's not just. That's not what we thought we were getting involved in. Not to me, at least. I thought we were setting up to do something like we were going to put people in who handled real business, who understood what was at stake, and that they were going to be our voice in there. A lot of people had a lot of expectations. What is this on the screen here? This is the route that was taken by the pipe bomber on the night of January the 5th, now that the statute of limitations have run out on anybody else. And what you see in the green on the farthest side of me is the actual route covered. But there was a direct route that avoided CCTV footed cameras that would have not been seen by Capitol Police surveillance. And so I don't know what you call this, but I would call it like showing the flag. What you saw was someone meandering around deliberately in front of, what is that, 6 U.S. Capitol Police cameras when there were routes that could have completely avoided almost all the cameras. You could have gotten in and gotten out to the DNC with almost no camera exposure. So what we saw was someone who deliberately made a hoodied figure that could be chased for years. And unfortunately, we think that Steve Baker and Joe Hanneman and the Blaze found that person. And then we got to see the biggest accomplishment of this current FBI right now, because remember, the guys who ran it told you what their big cases were. They told you up front they wanted to find the person who put coke at the White House. Does anyone know who that is? Me neither. That didn't get done. They wanted to find out who leaked the Dobbs decision. Not necessarily even a federal crime, but who did it? Nobody knows. And lastly, they were going to find out who dropped the pipe bomb. And then when someone actually identified a likely person that fit all the categories of all the things that these talkers have been doing for years, what did we get? We got a black autistic guy who lived at home, who got caught because of his cell phone pings, his license plate reader, got caught because he bought things with his own credit card, and he managed to evade the FBI. I'll say it one more time because it's the most ridiculous part. He evaded an $11 billion per year federal law enforcement agency with intelligence capabilities that's able to do national security work, evaded that agency. How? By just living his regular life and doing nothing else, by going and getting 2 slices of pizza at 7-Eleven and walking his Chihuahua and going to his job at a bail bondsman, which was just a couple of miles away from Washington, D.C. He just kept driving the same car. He kept carrying the same cell phone. He kept holding on to the same credit cards. And when asked, where's the bomb making stuff? Oh, I threw it away. Oh, what about those fancy shoes that you had on that day? They got rotty. I threw them away too. Well, that's convenient. Are you going to admit to everything we say after we threaten you with a felony? Yeah, I'm autistic. I'm going to just tell you what you need to know so I can get out of this room. I'm just telling you guys, it's not a good sign. And here's the thing. It's not even about Mr. Bongino, who's declared war, and I'll read his story here because it's actually, you know what? I'm going to let somebody else read it because he wrote a silly post. Let's just go to what that means more broadly. Let's give Dan Bongino the benefit of the doubt in a way that he would not give any of us. And I can just tell you he wouldn't give any of us because, I have that personal experience. No benefit of the doubt. No quick phone call. Hey, man, here's what's going on. Like, we need you to back off on this. Or would you mind backing off on this? Is what's trying to be accomplished. Nope, none of that. Nope, we're going to just disavow all knowledge and throw you to the wolves. That's fine. So be it. Let's go from the most friendly and loving position on Mr. Bongino and his departure. Let's go to one of his friends who would say nice things. This is Jesse Kelly of The Jesse Kelly Show. I think some people refer to him as the Oracle, or maybe he refers to himself that way. I got no animosity against Jesse Kelly. He's always seemed like a nice guy. He's funny. He's clever. And he's been on, he's invited me and Steve Friend on the program. This is what he said in July about a potential Dan Bongino departure. So let's just take him at that. This is Dan's friend saying what should happen to the FBI should Dan leave.
Dan is one of us. Hey, look, he's richer and more famous, but he's one of us, okay? If Dan leaves, that will tell me everything I need to know. That will tell me everything I need to know. And that's, honestly, it's the day I dread. It's the day I worry about. There, I just told you. If I wake up, what's that, Chris? Am I hearing he's going to? No. Let me be clear. Let me clarify. I've never heard a word about Dan leaving. He's never said anything to me privately about it either. I've never even heard a rumor about it. I've never heard a word about it. This is something I came up with in my own mind. But I wake up every day and I look at my phone for maybe a text message or maybe just a headline, Dan Bongino stepping down. If Dan Bongino steps down, especially if it's over the next year, it can't be saved. He doesn't believe he can save it because he's not going to sit there and do nothing. If he throws his hands up and says, screw it, I'm done, that'll tell you it can't be fixed.
Okay, newsflash. Yesterday was the first day of Dan Bongino leaving the FBI. He's now officially unleashed, and he's back to his private account, and he's back to the shit talking and the tough guy act and all of that. So there you go. Now you know what happened. It couldn't be saved by Dan, whatever that means. That's what Jesse believes. And again, his Mediaite, Alex Griffing. Dan Bongino declares war on black pillars and grifters trying to hijack the MAGA movement. Why do I feel like this is very personal? Do you guys get that feeling too? Kind of have that sense. Lest you think that is fake news, we wouldn't want that to be the case. So let's see. Is that in fact fake news? No. He said, "You damn right I did." Because that's what he thinks tough guys sound like, I think. Let's go to the story. Dan Bongino, recently retired deputy director. He didn't retire, by the way. He quit. He quit in under a year. Again, most of you guys, there's a decent chance over the last 8 years that I've spent more time changing diapers than Dan Bongino did working at the FBI. Just going to put that out there because I got 4 of them. 4 little ones. Here you go. He didn't retire. He's the recently resigned deputy director of the FBI, announces his return to the MAGA media world on Monday. I do like alliteration, so that's pretty fun. Declared war on the group of black pillars, life lizards, grifters, and bums. You're a bum rock, right? Okay, so maybe we get somebody else to read this for us because that'd be more fun. I don't want to be the reader of it. Maybe I get a reaction from it as well. He's got all this tough guy talk, so let's just get an update. This woman's name is Shipwrecked Show. I've actually never seen her outside of clips, but she's right on this one.
Dan Bongino is back as a citizen. He quit, or he left, or whatever. And he's made his very first post since coming back. Actually, this is his second. It's a follow-up to his first, where he's like, I'm so glad to be back. I missed you. I love you. This one, though, a little more fiery. Talks about how he started the movement, and it got hijacked by the black pillars and life losers, grifters, and bums. We are a movement guided by truth. Gonna warn the haters and the zeros. We've been at this a long time, and we live for this stuff. We got midterms coming up, and that's super important because we've got no time for bullshit because midterms. If you're bitching about any of it, just exit. Not infighting when you exercise the cancer killing the hoe. You know what, Dan Bongino? Fuck you. Seriously, fuck you. From the bottom of my fucking heart. Fuck you. I never really did watch you, but I caught your clips from here and there, and I thought you were great. I thought you were gonna get in there and fucking rock this place, and you didn't. Here's what you did do. Maybe everybody needs a little bit of a reminder because the dick suckers in your comments are concerning.
Killed himself. You want me to get? I've seen the whole file. He killed himself.
That Jeffrey Epstein story is a big deal. Please do not let that story go. Keep your eye on this.
All right. I don't know why there's background music in there, but yeah, she's not real happy about that. So I get it. I think there's a lot of people that are fitting in one of 2 categories. They're either in the knob slobbery or they are in the really, really let down. People have a right to be let down. You have a right to be saying, hey, you made big promises. You came in and talked like you were going to solve a problem. We put some hope in you, and then you didn't go and do anything with it. And you should be able to at least own that. Declaring war on grifters and black pillars is not it. How disappointing. I called this really early on, not because I'm like some sort of prognosticator, but because I'm a person who can actually just read what is happening in the world very clearly. And I had information that many of you did not. What I knew is that before Dan Bongino showed up to Washington, D.C., despite the fact that he did not have the background, and I said that to people like Benny Johnson, as funny as that is, I said it to people on Fox, I've said it to people on other news channels, I said it to people on podcasts and so on. Redacted, we talked about it. Alex Jones and I, we talked about it. The problem Dan was always going to face is he didn't have institutional knowledge. That's the same problem that the current deputy director has, by the way. Andrew Bailey walked in there, prior AG, prior Army officer, has some good experience in executive leadership, does not know the FBI. He's in a job where you need to know the FBI. If you don't understand what the deputy director does, it's like the chief operating officer. That's what they do. They have to manage all the personnel decisions. They have to manage all of the actual things. You've got a director who gives guidance and vision and knob slobbery to the president. Apparently, that seems to be his job. Flies around a cool jet, goes and listens to his girlfriend, sings national anthems all over the country, gets involved in lawsuits, sues Kyle Seraphin. That's what they do. And then you have the alternative. The guy who has to do nuts and bolts. You guys know what this person is like. This person is not fun to be around. This person is not like a cool guy. This is somebody who needs to come in there and tell people exactly what needs to be done right now, demand it, and then if you can't get results, then you're done. Bailey's going to face the exact same problem. But Bailey had the best day as FBI deputy director that we've seen in the last year and change. Why? No Twitter. At least he's doing the job that you would expect. How many of you have ever heard from the FBI deputy director prior to Dan Bongino stepping in there? I'll just answer it for you. The answer is none. You have not heard this person. You don't know who the former deputy directors were. How would you know? Because this is an inside FBI job. You got to know who's stuffing whose wife. You got to know who's involved in like shenanigans or did some sort of fraudulent, fudged their resume, who was hitching their wagons to somebody, so on and so forth. You got to understand what the politics happen, and it takes 20 years to learn. I'm not that guy. I would never be that guy. He did ask one guy to come in and help him be a bullshit detector. Before Dan Bongino went to Washington, D.C., he asked Steve Friend of the American Radicals podcast, who was brought back in as an FBI agent, allegedly, only to be fired by the FBI 5 days later for his appearance on my podcast here, which they obviously watch. So hello, seventh floor. Hello, FBI people that watch this program. I hope it's helping you. I hope you understand what's going on. It was clear that Dan was going to lose because Dan set himself up to lose by not hiring somebody to come in and sit next to him and tap him on the arm and say, hey, man, that person's a liar. Hey, buddy, that person just did this. That's one of Chris Wray's personally appointed fill in the blanks. This person is a former linguist who came up because they learned German, got hired on by the DEI hiring FBI in the late 90s, and then moved along post 9/11, moved into the security apparatus, has never done investigative work, is not an investigator, is not a federal agent, is now like the number 4 in your agency. You should probably watch that person. Chris Wray thought really highly of her. So did Jim Comey. You didn't have that someone to give that heads up. Instead, you had this moment. And this is when it confirmed to me that I was right in the first place. When he didn't call Steve Friend back, that was strike 1. This was strike 2 and 3 for me. You let someone at the FBI come and take you by the arm and tell you something and you believe them? When I saw this, I was like, oh, this guy has no idea what he's doing. And he's so lost, he had to take the guidance of some stranger at the Hoover building. What kind of skeptic is that? You watch this clip and tell me that you thought it was going to be okay after Fox News.
Does he still have loyalists in the building? Because when I hear the FBI director saying, you guys are finding boxes that are hidden, okay, how does that happen in the Bureau?
Well, we were there a couple of weeks, and luckily there were a lot of people up there who grabbed us by the arm the minute we came in and said, thank you for being here. You know, we need to talk.
What was that? You showed up, you didn't know what you were doing, they knew you didn't know what you were doing, and so a bunch of people inside the Hoover building, that swamp-infested, like, brood of vipers, you rolled into the nastiest part of the FBI. The problem with the entire agency comes out of the Hoover building. Your boss said that previously. And they came up and were like, oh, thank God you're here. You guys need to know this stuff. And you believe them. Why? Because you were dumb and desperate. That is just a decidedly foolish thing to do. Can you guys imagine walking into, I don't know, like the headquarters of MS-13, and you're there as an undercover and people just touch you immediately and they're like, thank you, welcome. They're setting you up to kill you. They're setting you up to kill your reputation in this case. So you trusted them. That's your fault. That's not the fault of people who are black pillars and grifters and life losers. This is you not knowing what you were doing, being out of your depth, and you blew it, man. So anyway, I'll continue this little clip. But by the way, he didn't answer the question. Like, are there still loyalists to Jim Comey? Yeah, they're the ones that came and grabbed you by the arm, dummy.
There are people there who are really horrified at what happened.
Yeah,
and
I bet.
There was a room, and we found stuff, a lot of stuff.
A hidden room.
I wouldn't call it hidden, but hidden from us at least, and not mentioned to us. And then we found stuff in there. And
what do you mean by hidden from us, by the way? Because I heard this at the time, and I was like, what is it? Why would you know what was in the FBI's rooms at the Hoover building? You didn't work there. You had no experience of it. This is the goofiest. This is how I knew that this guy was screwed. You came out and thought this was a reasonable thing to explain to Americans, and then laid out your priorities, and then you accomplished none of them. None of them. All 3 of your major priorities, goose eggs. In the meantime, the person that fit the mold for all the things that you said worked for the government, worked for a member of Congress, in a dignitary protection role, was there on January 6th and was actively involved in the violations of civil liberties by shooting things at people's heads in a way that you're not allowed to. Now works for the CIA. I mean, can you just it's dunk after dunk after dunk of okay, that checks all those boxes. Are we interested? No. You know what happened instead? Dan Bongino told a member of Congress who's friendly to this program that he was going to write the check coming after who? The people who told the real story. He wanted to write the check for a defamation lawsuit. That's Mr. Free Speech Rumble right there said that.
And a lot of it's from the Comey era. And we are working our damnedest right now to declassify. And just so you know, because I get the public, I totally understand people saying, well, do it now. The process is not all the information is ours to declassify. Some is other intelligence agencies. It's not, we literally can't do it.
We literally tried, but we literally can't do it. You guys want to know? That's a preview of what you're going to get on the next Dan Bongino iteration. Meanwhile, this guy, not a Trump supporter, Brian J. Cole, 30 years old. This was posted by Viva Frei, voted 3 times since his party registration in 2013. This is the alleged pipe bomber. He's registered as a Democrat in Virginia, as far as we can tell, in his Woodbridge home. How did that guy have anything to do with anything? Anyway, we held a Twitter space. I had some fun. We had Jess on. This is Jess. If you guys didn't hear it, it's in my timeline. It may be fun for you to listen to. It's a kind of an unfiltered version of just some dudes popping off about their thoughts. We went all over the place. There were some people saying some really wild stuff. People blamed everything from eminent domain and government overreach to the Jews and whatever else. And like, there was a lot of weird stuff that was said. I don't avow all of it, but I do avow listening to people and recognizing that regular Americans, not pundits, talking heads, funded grifters, whatever the hell Harmeet Dillon's mad about when she was going out there and blocking us last week. Regular people look at inaction and they can recognize a tree for its fruits. If you grow an apple tree and it produces no apples, is it even an apple tree? I guess you could cut it down and have like apple wood and smoke your bacon with it on your bacon cheeseburger. But it's not the same thing if it doesn't actually bear the fruit as it is designed. And it's certainly a failure of a tree. You'd be a little bit disappointed if you planted a fruit tree and it bore no fruit. And so this concept is thousands of years old for people. Look at what was born from the tree. Nothing. And what do you think you're going to get? A man who's pro-Trump, who cannot say otherwise, who can't go against this regime. He's done, unfortunately, Dan has done the one thing that the FBI does to every single retired agent, which is why you don't see a lot of people coming out and speaking. The number of folks that have showed up that are retired FBI agents that have a pension and will come and speak to me and be on this program, it's very small, folks. The reason is they've tied their reputation to that agency. When you put that many years in, you are now aligned with that agency, even if you've seen them do things that are wrong. Bongino is now inextricably linked to his performance for those 9 months, and everybody will judge him by those 9 months. And the results are basically goose eggs. No Epstein prosecutions, no Coke in the White House, no Dobbs decision leaker, no major reforms where we go, you know what? When the Democrats take over power, we are not going to see an FBI kicking down our door. What we saw is discussion about Israel and maybe cracking down on free speech and some other shady things, and then trumpeting a bunch of arrests of people who are illegal aliens, where if you know anything about task force work, you had locals claiming the arrest. You had feds claiming the arrest in every single agency. So there were thousands and thousands of arrests more than last year because they did a bunch of like half-ass deportation operations that DHS was running. I know people that are on these operations. I spoke to one this morning on those operations. What are they doing? Somebody else is setting up the target package and they're rolling out on them. I don't know how many times I'm going to give you the thumb, the finger, and these things. I'm going to give you all the numbers. This stuff is very, very simple and logical. Anyway, Jess had some thoughts on it yesterday on X, and I thought that was funny too. So I'll share that, and then we'll move on to the J6 pipe bomb stuff, some of the court documents, and then maybe we'll do a little bit on Venezuela because that's what's taken over the news cycle, not this 5th year anniversary of J6.
I'm trying to shoot this, but I just can't fucking stop laughing because some people out there, they think Dan Bongino is gonna go scorched earth. He left the FBI where he was a fucking CIA cocksucking mouthpiece, and they think now he's gonna come back. Dude, he is going to spew Fox News talking points. And if you haven't figured out what's going on here, like when Dan Bongino tweeted out this summer and he was like, I've seen some shit and it's shaken me to my core and I'll never be the same. That means he was never going to be the same. And now he was only going to do what they told him to do. And that's why he came out and he told you Epstein fucking killed himself and a bunch of other bullshit. And then he lied to you about Charlie Kirk and he framed the fucking J6 pipe bomber. Like, that's what he meant there. So, like, quit smoking the fucking hopium and think that this dude is just, now he's gonna leave the FBI and he's gonna go back to his old podcast. He told you he is never going to be the same. This is the new Dan Bongino. Whatever they do, however they threaten you, whatever they show you, what are they fucking probably just fucking peel off their fucking face and they're a fucking reptile. That's probably what's going on here. It's gotta be something that fucking wild. And he's just like, this shakes me to my core. I'm gonna say whatever the fuck you want me to say.
This is why people like Jess. If you've never seen him before, he's gotten himself into all kinds of trouble. He's a car guy. He's a welder. He's a metal worker. He's a 3D artist. He's also just a regular person that if you went and met someone like that, you all know a guy like that. Maybe not as articulate, maybe swears more or less, calluses on his hands, does man stuff, you know, puts on his pants in the morning because he doesn't want to get his legs all cut up from the things that he's doing physically. You could see he was welding a door in the background there. If you guys didn't see that, he's working on 2 heavy doors. I said, how heavy? He's like, not enough. I assume he's like worried about a tank coming into his shop or something, which is real. I mean, this is what we're talking about. Regular people can sit and go, we got promised something, it wasn't delivered, somebody said something, never explained it, we're going to now interpret what we think that means. Something that shook you to your core will never be the same? Yeah. The new guy is the guy that we saw. That was pretty funny. So that's what I wanted you to consider, because this program is going to be attacked. And I don't know what that's going to look like. But I can tell you when the Mediaite guys are like, oh, he's declared war, he's going to go after Nick Fuentes. I don't think he cares about Nick Fuentes. He's going to go after critics of the FBI. He's been making phone calls for weeks talking about people who were criticizing the work that he did because he knew it was ineffective. And rather than fix himself and do the thing right, he turned around and said, I'm going to go after the critic. Don't worry about the message. Let's just try to kill the messenger. So if you guys are following us on Rumble and you think that everything is on the up and up over there, I'm going to tell you, I don't think so. How do I know? We are constantly on the Rumble leaderboard for the most liked shows, in the top 50 most liked shows on the entire site, on the entire platform. And we have never once been featured. Not one time have we been on the main page. That's fine. We usually have 5x to 10x less followers and subscribers than the people that are on either side of us, because we are overcoming it in spite of it. We have a very active audience over on Rumble, and you guys are part of that. But don't be surprised when somebody who's a 6% owner of that company decides that we no longer can show up and crushes us down again. It already happened once. We went from getting 2,500 people watching in the morning to like 800 in a day. And it wasn't me. It was the same program. So all I'm saying is insulate, make sure you follow us in a couple of different places. I would appreciate it if you would. That would be great for us. It would be kind of like peace of mind. Let's talk about another thing for peace of mind. Let's talk about, one of those things that you have to do to live. It's not just avoid government killings and being shut down, although that's a big part of it. How about water? That's real simple. What about hydration? You should check out my friends over at Cove Pure. I wish you would. I had a little moment last night where my son, who is 4 and makes questionable decisions about a lot of things because he's 4, rolled up, wanted to fill up his water bottle, and all he had to do is push the 6-ounce button and fill up his bottle, and you can trust a 4-year-old to run the machine. That's how easy it is, so check that out by all means. If you guys did things like a lot of people did and you overdid it during the holiday season, maybe not me, but maybe you've damaged your body by alcohol or over food consumption or eating junk foods or having late nights or skipping out on workouts. That was me as well. A little bit of that. You can make the new year easy, a resolution that you can actually keep, which is just drinking more water. The fundamentals of it are add water and avoid mild dehydration, which can affect your energy and your focus and your metabolism. If you guys want to make sure that you are keeping the garbage out of your water, you want to keep PFAs and pharmaceuticals and all kinds of other contaminants in there, minerals that you don't want, leads, microplastics, blah, 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 fluorides. You can remove all that up to 99.9% of all contaminants are removed by the Clearway technology. And so if you guys want to talk about the easiest way to do it, it's just simply having a machine that will get it done for you. You push the button, it solves the problem. You want to do hot, you want to do cold, you want to do lukewarm, all very easy. You set it up with no installation. It's great for renters like we are here. And all you got to do is run about 15 minutes worth of setup. And I haven't touched it since then, other than my kids pushing the button and running it out. Get rid of like all the nasty industrial looking stuff. You don't have to do a whole house filter, especially if you don't own it. Go to covepure.com/KYLE. I got to tell you where to go, I guess, right? covepure.com/Kyle. Right now, $200 off the normal price. covepure.com/KYLE. Start off the new year right. Get your water squared away. That's like simple stuff. If you guys are not hydrated, you guys even know. Like that's the cure for a lot of military ailments. For those of you who have never been in the military, I'll just tell you right now. They always tell you Motrin, probably like 800 to 1600 milligrams. Take a knee. You got to take a knee because it's required. And then water to the dome. Just hydrate. All right. So interestingly enough, I heard Jess say it. There's something about Fox News that's really problematic. It's the slop factory. This is the approved narrative. And sometimes people tell you the truth about that sort of instinct to sell their voice and their face and their credibility for dollars. I'm going to call it attention whoring because what you're doing is you're selling people, liking you, and you're doing it for a paycheck. My favorite is that when I shared that Megyn Kelly posted this on her own show, she said this, not me. I didn't go make Megyn Kelly admit this about herself. The funniest thing was is that people were like, what about you when you worked at the FBI? You used to do things that you didn't agree with. No, I never did. It turns out I never did things I didn't agree with. And when things were coming up that I was like, hey, that's kind of on the edge, I would go tell someone. That's called being a whistleblower. I started doing that in my first year. And somebody amusingly that I know pretty well said, Kyle got fired for being Kyle at the FBI. It wasn't anything particular. Like, if you asked me to do something illegal, immoral, unethical, I'm the same guy that went on that first Dan Bongino podcast that many of you saw. I just don't like it when people are fake. I don't like it. I don't want to be around you. I don't respect it. Here's Megyn Kelly telling you that you should believe her now after 14 years of being a paid shill. By the way, she had like a little sideline where she was at NBC and she was promoting trans kids and doing a daytime talk show. She spent 5 times as much time as I've been in public life taking money for saying other people's talking points. And now you should trust her. I think this is the quiet part out loud.
When I was at Fox News, which was a long time, 14 years, I would have known exactly what to do in the wake of Trump's attack in Venezuela, his retrieval, shall we say, to put it in mild terms, of Nicolas Maduro. I would have known that I was supposed to cheerlead it. And I turned on Fox News yesterday, and I'm sorry, but it was like watching Russian propaganda. There was nothing skeptical. It was all rah-rah, cheerleading. Yes, let's go. And that's fine. I love our military as much as anyone, and I believe in President Trump. But there are serious reasons to just exercise a note of caution before we just get on the rah-rah train. All right, I have done that enough times in my career as a Fox News anchor to have been embarrassed enough to know I'm going to stay on the yellow light for this. I'm not in the green light territory. I'm not in the red light territory either, but I am.
Did she just say that I've done this enough times in my career? Just saying, when you admit to something out loud, we just heard it.
Staying in the yellow light territory for now. I see all of the strategic advantages of what he's done. Trust me, I do. I see that other countries like Russia and China and Cuba were all over Venezuela and its oil, posing a potential threat to the United States. I get that. That's actually the most persuasive argument, and obviously the real one, and none of this bullshit about law enforcement.
Wait, the law enforcement part is bullshit? That doesn't sound right.
But I have seen what happens when you cheerlead unabashedly U.S. intervention in foreign countries, thinking it's for our good and for the international good, only to wind up with what we've called quagmire.
So did she just tell you that she's done cheerleading for things that were clearly wrong and she did it because she did it for a paycheck? These are a lot of people that are out there in the public space, in the media space, that do this. And I was told once by somebody, and I can't remember what the advice was or where it came from, but it was essentially, if you are in the new media, and I am in the new media apparently, and you have an opportunity to point out the flaws, the failings, and the fakeness of the old media, of the legacy media, then you would be remiss in not doing so. So allow me to point out what that Russian propaganda, what that cheerleading looks like. If you think somebody is going to do something for 15 or 18 years and then they've changed their spots, like that lady didn't change her spots, she just changed into a Catwoman outfit and now she sits and does a podcast. For those of you that think that somebody is completely different after decades of doing the same thing, imagine this. How many of us know a man who was a bachelor, confirmed bachelor, for his whole life, 15, 18, 20 years? Do they ever turn around and then just get married and then like live happily ever after? Or do they go, no, that's not really what my life is about? You can look, the past is prologue, and more importantly, past behavior is the best predictor of future performance. You think that Catwoman there, Megyn Kelly, is not willing to also still do things for $1? I know someone who is. He's a generally nice guy, at least in my experience dealing with him, pretty minimally. But they're full of crap over at Fox News. So let's celebrate fireworks and foreign invasions and whatever completely uncritically. This is what that cheerleading would look like.
Big, beautiful fireworks are going off right now over the nation's capital as Trump kicks off the countdown to America's 250th birthday. Venezuela got the new year started off with a bang, courtesy of Uncle Sam.
Amor. Ay, no.
After the clock struck midnight Friday and the skies were clear, the commander-in-chief signed off on one of the most audacious military operations in American history. 150 aircraft from over 20 bases in the Western Hemisphere took off towards Venezuelan airspace. Venezuelan seaports, military bases, and air defense systems came under attack. Communication, radar, and air defense systems neutralized and jammed, thanks to U.S. Cyber Command and Space Force.
This couldn't be better if it had been written by the federal government's hype agencies. Jesse Waters, reporting for Fox News, reading right off the teleprompter. Now, it looks totally real the way he reads it, doesn't it? Do you know anybody that actually talks like that? Like, does anybody actually speak like that? No. Let's go to some of those lessons. What was the lesson? Do you guys remember the movie The 40-Year-Old Virgin, which was one of my favorites? I don't know why I thought that was so damn funny, but like I really honed in on a bunch of the weird stuff. One of the best parts of 40-Year-Old Virgin was Steve Carell goes, he's at the sex education thing with like his his future stepchild, the daughter. And he was like, I heard if you don't use it, you lose it. Right? And then the lady was like, what? And he was like, yeah, that's not true. Apparently that is true. If you're Jesse Waters, you have to use your military or you're going to lose your military or oil or resources or other things. Here's defense of like, I don't know, maybe endless wars that I thought we weren't going to do.
But there's another military doctrine I'd like to say. If you don't use it, you lose it. And that goes for Greenland, and it also goes for all the oil that Venezuela has. And Denmark better wise up. They should sell it to us, lease it to us, so we can run it together. Who cares? But we need it more than they do. Same with the oil. Harold, I don't know if you missed the press conference on Saturday morning. I did. I didn't have internet, but I've read about it, and he was very clear about what's going on here. We're kicking the Chinese out of the hemisphere. That goes for the Arctic and it goes for Latin America. Didn't want to do research for this segment, had to.
Yeah.
Do you know how many?
Had this handed to me by producers and other people who write all this stuff. Let's get it done. So we're going to get Greenland, apparently, and we're willing to do it aggressively. That's what I heard. What did you hear?
Can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
You're going to be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake.
Guys, it wouldn't be military action against Greenland. We would just go there and take it and occupy space that is not being used, just like the original colonists did, just like the people who came and forged the wilderness to our will in America. I mean, that's kind of an odd statement in 2025. I'm just saying it doesn't mean that we shouldn't have Greenland. It doesn't mean that we can't do something about it. Doesn't mean that we're not already defending it because of the proximity to America and the sphere of protection that we offer. It's like, I just keep seeing, I've got an entire slew of clips where people don't answer the question they're being asked. Are you ready? Here we go.
Can you say that military action against Greenland is off the table?
You're going to be military action against Greenland. The Greenland has a population of 30,000 people, Jake. The real question is, by what right does Denmark assert control over Greenland? What is the basis of their territorial claim? What is their basis of having Greenland as a colony of Denmark? The United States is the power of NATO. For the United States to secure the Arctic region, to protect and defend NATO and NATO interests, obviously Greenland should be part of the United States. And so that's a conversation that we're going to have as a country. That's a process we're going to have as a community of nations.
So you can't take it off the table that the U.S. would use military force to seize Greenland. You can't take it off the table.
Jake, I understand you're trying very hard to, which again, is your job. I respect it. It's great to get exactly the headline, right? That catchy headline.
I'm trying to get an answer to the question.
That says Miller refuses to rule out. The United States should have Greenland as part of the United States. There's no need to.
He's like, I understand you're trying to get headline. Miller won't rule out military intervention. And then he just doesn't rule out military intervention just for whatever it's worth. I mean, I'm just going to I'll just play referee on that and be like, and this one, I think the point goes to Jake Tapper. That was a pretty reasonable question. And it should be a relatively straightforward answer. It's like, yeah, we're not going to use the military. We're going to use financial leverage. We've got all these other diplomatic options, whatever. Why in the world would we need military options? And he doesn't want to say no. I don't know why that is. And a couple of weeks ago, I probably would have been like, well, there's no example or history of them using military options, so why would anyone think they would? And then we flew Blackhawks in on the, January the 2nd and kicked off the new year by grabbing a foreign head of state inside their country. So maybe that's not so crazy to think about right now. I can't help but laughing at this. And again, it's a non-answer. This is the same thing that you heard the Biden administration get criticized for. This is why when we say it's a flip a coin and they're both sides of the same coin, Republican, Democrat, it's just, who's in power is going to get criticized. Yeah, for real. It's whoever's there. They're the same bird. It's the same vulture. It's just one wing, the other wing, same body. They all act the same way. And when I tell you that I think that Democrats are pushing towards whatever their agenda is and Republicans are just doing that agenda at the speed limit instead of speeding forward, I mean it. It's like, what does this have to do with any? Like, how many of you woke up before 2024 midsummer and thought, you know what? The United States really needs Greenland. Was that even in your consciousness? Was that how you thought 2016 Donald Trump was going to make America great again? You were like, you know what's holding us back? We've got all these problems with DEI. We've got these cultural issues. We've got the marginalization of Christian values in the United States. We have this tax burden that is unbelievable and overwhelming. We have government programs creeping into all of our lives. We have this invasive surveillance state that's taken over, and we can't even speak freely without fear of being canceled or being deported or imprisoned. We've got people going to jail for memes. If we could just freaking get Greenland, that would get it done, wouldn't it? Did anyone say that? Can anyone please put me in the comments that your statement before 2023, I'll love it if you got a link to a social media post or a video you made or a snapshot of a text message sharing that you personally were like, all my stuff would be better off if we just had Greenland. Or are you just getting on board because that's what the guy says? And the guy is Donald Trump and you feel compelled to agree with him. Now, I don't hate that you want to agree with the leader. But can we at least be critical in the way that Dan Bongino should have been critical when he went to the FBI and he was shit-talking people for years and they came up and held his arm and said, sir, we got this for you. Thank God you're here. You're like, whoa, who are you? Why are you so friendly? And what kind of other nefarious things do you have to do? Guys, they're making me agree with CNN and Marjorie Taylor Greene, who generally speaking, I think is kind of awful. I think MTG is not great. I think that her morals are bad. She made a ton of money being in Congress like a bunch of the others. So she's not a winner in my book. I don't know that she has any principles better than anyone else. And yet, you should be able to disagree with the people that you would otherwise agree with because they're departing from the principles, like America first.
And so I unapologetically support America first. And as an American, it's okay to disagree with the president that I helped get elected. And it's okay to disagree with other Americans. But what's not okay is for our government to put their full focus on foreign countries.
That doesn't seem crazy to me. That sounds like what a normal person might say, like on any given day. What's wild is that we have to have women on Fox News, women coming out and on this thing, women in the GOP who have the actual nuts and stones to say the thing that should be said by men, which is like, hey, bro, that's not what you said earlier. How many of you have a friend that will fact check you on something when you say something dumb? I know I do. They'll be like, didn't you say this the other day? And you're like, oh, yeah, that's awkward. Yeah, I did say that. And then they'll be like, well, what of it? And you go, I was wrong. Yeah, I made a mistake. Or actually, I disagree with my thing I just said a second ago because I was wrong now. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for correcting me. Why is it women? Why is it Kat Timpf, Fox News contributor, who has to say, kind of reasonable to have whiplash about what's been going on?
You have to see how some people might be feeling a little bit of whiplash here, given that Trump spent 10 years railing against U.S.-led regime change war. His own director of intelligence, as recently as 2 months ago, was railing against regime change war, and then he does one. So
it's just a regime change. The regime is still there, as far as I know, the vice president.
Let me get this straight. We go to a country, we capture their leader, we bomb it, and then we say, we run this country now, and that's not war. But when they say send cocaine over here that people are willingly snorting, that is war.
Uh-oh. If you send cocaine to our country, not fentanyl, by the way, not fentanyl, which was being cheered on, because fentanyl's not actually made there. If you send cocaine into our country, then that is war. But us taking the military into your country is not war. That was the argument I'm kind of making yesterday. There's a few of us that see it. It's not that we're against what went down or that there's no benefit. It's not that I'm saying that there's not some benefit to the American people or maybe even the Venezuelan people. But as my wife pointed out to me this morning, how many people in this nation despise, loathe, hate, would cheer the death of Donald Trump? Just take a moment to reflect on people that you personally know and then what you know exists out there in the world. There's a lot. I don't know if it's 30%. I don't know if it's 42% or 49%, but there's a sizable group of people that say things very simply. If something bad happened to Donald Trump, they're on the side of cheering on the people who did it, right? So you think it would be difficult to find that in Venezuela? Like leaders sometimes are not liked by people. They don't get 100% unanimous support. So it would be very easy for you to find people who didn't agree. And I'm also a little bit more concerned that guys that I generally speaking have rooted for, I root for Stephen Miller because he's smart. I can tell he's smart because he answers questions on the fly. And when he takes things, he generally seems to have a ready, set, go. People who have the facts on their side are very easily, sucker punched and still respond well. It's hard to ambush somebody that knows what's going on. What happens when somebody should be prepared for a really simple question and it catches them flat-footed and they look kind of silly? And this happened. Again, now you're making me look at Caitlin Collins going, great question. What is your job in running Venezuela? Donald Trump said you were. How well have we thought this thing out? This is not an ambush question. This is like you got assigned a responsibility. I assume you know what that responsibility is. So the question should be bigger. Like, what are we doing there? How do we run this thing? What are your roles? Hi, the president said that you're in charge of something. What are you in charge of? No answer. Again, another non-answer.
Stephen, you were a part of that group, the select group that the president said is his staff that is running Venezuela. What exactly are your day-to-day responsibilities?
The president of the United States has asked Secretary Rubio, who also happens to be his national security advisor, to directly, of course, under the president's close guidance and direction, to be the lead on this process. But obviously there's many other elements involved. You have energy policy, treasury policy, financial policy, military policy. So it's
you got hacking skills, you got nunchuck skills, you got weightlifting skills, you got welding skills, you've got wrench turning skills. What are we doing? We're just like, sometimes one of those tactics is, by the way, if you get caught off guard and you don't know how to answer a question, you just go into a list. This is a thing that people do. I'll just say something, then I'll say something very similar, and I'll just go down the line. It's not really that great. These are the policy things. Like, here's what Rubio's going to be doing. What are you going to be doing, man? What's your job? Like, what part of Venezuela do you run? That seems really straightforward. It's like, oh, well, like my job is going to be implementation of the following things. That's what they asked me to do. Or maybe they didn't ask you to do anything yet, and you're just like winging it. He shouldn't have been asked that question by Caitlin Collins, obviously. He should have gotten asked that question by someone who would give him the answer in advance. And the only way you can do that is by going on Sean Hannity's show, where Sean Hannity asks and answers every question and then gives you an opportunity to agree with it. And so I've got a little piece from that. I'll do it in 1 second. If you guys are just watching us and you're listening, you're missing out on the video. If you're watching on Rumble or YouTube, please give us a like. If you're listening on Apple, on iHeartRadio, on any of the other podcast apps, Podbean and so on, Pod Addict, all that, you're missing out on Spotify because you can switch between the audio and the video, and you may hear an ad from them right now. And that helps pay our bills, just so you guys know. They're probably our single most monetized platform, Spotify, and it's one of our smallest. They just do a really good job on that. So subscribe anywhere else. We get paid for all the other stuff. I'm just telling you because I'm being transparent. This is why I don't have to be a whore to anybody. Like, I take the ad dollars we can get. We get the rev from the advertising that you see on these like pop-ups. And that's it. That's it. It's really transparent. If you guys have ever seen, I've actually opened the books for our locals community, and locals, you can join us, KyleSeraphin.com, if you guys want to see that. Like, occasionally I'll just show you what we make at this podcast. We being me and the family. It's just me standing here. Hold on. Is it just me? I think it's just me. There it is. You know what's crazy? Also, this camera shot, which is set up on the wall now, I've moved it around. This camera shot, before I did today's podcast, I had the monitor open that was showing this camera footage. And as it went up, like, it was just sitting there, and I'm like looking around, and I was, reading and grabbing video clips, and I watched this happen. The camera just started doing this without me doing anything, and it just started drifting around the room. I don't know what they were looking for, but it made me think that maybe somebody was out there doing something sketchy with my camera. So there you go. Anyway, it's just a one-man show, and I appreciate you guys watching it. So that's kind of it's kind of funny when you start looking up and you're like, oh shoot, seems like Seems like maybe someone's taking control of our camera. Hope that wasn't as nefarious as it looked like. Maybe it was just a mistake. All right, quick little bit from maybe Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan's always been known as a truth talker, right? He rolls up those sleeves. He gets into there. He talks real tough. He can do a hearing. He could send a letter like nobody business. Are we going to do any military interaction anywhere else? Yet another question not answered. We don't know what Stephen Miller's going to do because Stephen Miller doesn't know. And Jim Jordan's not going to rule out military action either. Is this kind of troubling? I'm just saying this is sometimes foreshadowing.
Do you support putting American boots on the ground in Venezuela for a long period of time?
Well, again, that's a question for later. I think most Americans are again, trust the president to do what's in the best interest of the American people and the best interest, frankly, of the folks in Venezuela. I mean, you see the cheering in the streets.
But isn't this a question you have
here.
to think about before you do something like this?
And I'm sure they have. They want this transition to work out in a way that benefits America. President Trump, every decision he makes, it's one thing I know about this guy is I think he makes.
He just said this dude about the president. I could say this dude. You're a congressman. You can't say this dude, Jim Jordan. Are you kidding me? Yeah, but his answer was trust the president. That's not a strategy. It's not a strategy for regular people. Nobody should feel good about that. Okay. So that being said, what about the opposition leader lady? You know the lady, we'll cover her in just a second. I've got kind of a timeline. There's this like leftist, looks like she might be into ladies, teacher who did a TikTok that I found and I chopped it up into a couple pieces. I think it's really well done. And so I'm going to give you that. It's like a chalk talk. There's a couple different perspectives of what's happening in Venezuela. Obviously, the oil piece of it, the political regime change piece of it. There's some other sort of like, petrodollar, BRICS, etc. We talked about some of this in the space last night. But what about if we could just get a straight propaganda shill angle from a guy who used to wear a CIA pin on his jacket for Fox News? This is cheerleading, but also like with the sort of added benefit of coming with a little bit of government intervention, Mockingbird style. Sean Hannity will tell you the answer to the question. Here it is.
With incredible, under extreme conditions, unfair conditions, Sean.
Well, that was the person that replaced you and that you're very close to. But let me go back and talk about it. You stayed in the country, but you were hiding within your country until you went to receive the Nobel Peace Prize. And I want you to tell us, you never went back at that point. Did you not go back because you feared for your life? And tell us, I mean, it's not very usual that people will dedicate the Nobel Peace Prize to the leader of a different country and say publicly, he deserves this more than I do. But you did that.
Let me be very clear. As soon as I learned that we had been awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, I dedicated to President Trump because I believed at that point that he deserved it. And a lot of people, most people said it was impossible to achieve what he has just done on Saturday, January 3rd. So if I believed he deserved it on October, imagine now. I think he has proven to the world what he means. I mean, January 3rd will go down in history as the day justice defeated a tyranny. It's a milestone, and it's not only huge for the Venezuelan people and our future, I think it's a huge step for humanity, for freedom and human dignity.
Great. Yep. That's grade A. That's like 100% best case scenario slop that you could ever get. And then let's go to maybe the worst indication that Jim Jordan's sort of dodge answer, the Stephen Miller dodge answer to Jake Tapper, is putting us towards something kind of nefarious. Yesterday, I showed you that the walking, upright, human, throbbing war boner that is Lindsey Graham was rolling around on Air Force One. He decided that that wasn't good enough. He also apparently hung out with Trey Gowdy. So we've got some Gowdy knob schlobbing of Lindsey Graham, which is truly pornographic. And I am going to show it on the show, so we'll have a content warning right there. He also was on Air Force One making arguments that everybody else should be careful and that we might be doing some more ugly stuff. So here he was interrupting Donald Trump straightening him out a little bit about something, and then sort of like something very problematic. I think, why is this guy so close? Why is Tom Massey the enemy? Why is Marjorie Taylor Greene not in Congress anymore? Because she's done, even though she was Miss MAGA. And this dude, has a seat at the table. Doesn't that tell you a lot?
Understand something. So when he first got elected in January, we met, biggest comeback ever. We talked about
you think so, really? I didn't feel it was a comeback, actually.
So
because the first one was.
The bottom line is, we talked about a drug caliphate in our backyard. We had Venezuela, we have Cuba, we have Colombia in our backyard. And these three countries have been condemned ever since I've been in politics. Joe Biden put a $25 billion bounty on Maduro's head. Chris Smith, today he got inaugurated, said, I hope Trump will hold Maduro's feet to the fire. You did. So what has he done? He's going to clear our backyard of a drug caliphate, countries run by narco-terrorist dictators who murder, rape, send drugs into our country to kill thousands of our citizens. To my Democratic friends, you should be celebrating this. When bin Laden went down, I was the first to applaud President Obama. This was one of the most sophisticated military operations in the history of the country. What they were.
There's a lot of strong talking points there, but here's the problem. Lindsey Graham was also the first person to say that it was time to cut ties with Donald Trump after January 6th. You guys remember that too? He gave a speech on the floor and said, this guy's done and we're done with him and I'm done with him and I can't support him anymore. Why is he standing on Air Force One today? Megyn Kelly did the same thing, by the way. And then she realized where the audience was, realized where the money was, realized that by saying things that you like in really nice ways and not ever saying anything other than, I totally trust implicitly Donald Trump. That's something I don't do, ever. I don't do it. I just don't think that anybody should be trusted that well, and I don't think you should trust me that well. If I come up and say, hey, I've got all the answers, you should be very concerned about that. That's a weird thing for me to do. I also am not real crazy about making Iran great again. Anyone? Are we looking for this? You want to make Iran great again? You want to make black hats that say make Iran great again and go on Fox News? This tells you something about what the official talking points look like. I'm setting up this story about how we're talking about people that are willing to whore themselves out for propaganda for one side or the other. This is Fox telling you what they're about. This should be a very, very strong indication of what's to come.
Iran. So I think that 2026 will be the year that we make Iran great again. I want to go after welfare fraud. I want to rewrite the way the programs work. I want to make sure that every state, before they get $1 for food stamps or any form of welfare, that they send biometrics to the federal government proving that the person exists and they're eligible for the services in question. I want to go after the fraud that's so rampant in Minnesota and throughout these blue states through reconciliation. And second, I want to do an affordability package, making America more affordable to the hard-working men and women of this country.
So that's what Lindsey Graham's all about. He's about affordability and making sure that it's affordable by us going after Iran, and you should celebrate these certain things and so on. And so, we're talking about journalists here, and I don't think anybody should say something nasty about Trey Gowdy. He definitely isn't licking the scrotum of the guy that just showed up on his show verbally. This is kind of pornographic, isn't it?
All right, Chairman, it was great fun being with you and the president last night and again this morning. Feel free to Venmo me the money that you lost to me on the golf course. I do accept Venmo. Until then,
I'll send
you take care.
Well, here's the good news, Trey. Here's the good news. I'm gonna pay you, but it will be in Venezuelan dollars. So good luck.
I can't wait.
Guys, I'm going to give you Venezuelan dollars. That's what I'm going to do. Just ball licking. I mean, that's just so you guys know, I'm going to have to remember if I need that clip ever again. I actually saved it as it's Gowdy licks Graham's balls. That's what I saved it in on my computer. I always put like little headlines that I can recall, and that's one of them. So now you guys know that about me. If the Bureau is searching my files right now, that's where you'll find that particular clip as you guys run through. Like, are we serious? What on earth was that? Like, ugh. All right, so there you go. Meanwhile, if you guys missed discussion about what was going on in the FBI's setup of people, because there's all these distractions going on as well. Like, they're out there trying to tell you all this exciting stuff. We'll do the oil story. We'll do the background, the history thing. We'll do it tomorrow. I can only do so much Venezuela at one time. My buddy Steve Friend has been doing a great job. He just started up on the American Radicals podcast again. If you guys wanted a breakdown of this story, which I put on here, but I don't actually want to cover it because it turns out he did a great job covering it. This was the New Year's Eve inspired ISIS story out of North Carolina. Remember, whenever there's a PR disaster, the FBI will go to the well and they will find themselves an 18-year-old, a 25-year-old, some sort of moronic person on the internet who will say that they want to do ISIS stuff. They'll do it every time. I mean, it's the playbook. The upside is they have hundreds of these people available at any given time. And this is a story that he covered yesterday. So if you guys are interested in about, hey, like whatever happened to that terrorist thing that happened? What about that ISIS guy that was in North Carolina? What about the guy that was going to kill people? And I'll show you the weapon systems that he was prepared to use. And this is pretty sophisticated. This is another time that if you're watching on any of the visual platforms, including Spotify, you want to be on video. That is a butcher knife, people. That is like a $3.50 dollar store special, 7.5-inch chef's knife, and a 14-ounce roofing hammer. And I think another one that might even be like a 16-ounce roofing hammer with a hickory handle, no less. And these were the weapons of mass construction that he was planning on using to attack and destroy, I don't know, like a wall or a cake, maybe? Or a kid's birthday party. In any case, this is what your FBI actually does. They set up the dominoes, knock down the dominoes, and I think we'll finish with a little discussion about the story of Brian Cole Jr., and we'll read some of the documents that I think are really problematic. All I want to know is, folks, I have this from yesterday, but is this what we really voted for? Because it kind of bothers me that that's the case. It also bothers me that we have a country that is willing to keep people that have not been given due process. Those people are in prison, and Abrego Kilmar Garcia got kicked out because we didn't follow due process for someone who came here illegally. That should just be the sort of like the balance of the big stories that are out there. No Democrats that I hear of right now, because it's not just like Republicans suck. I mean, everybody sucks. It's unfortunate, but they do, because we're all weaponized with our attention span, and we got everybody cheerleading aside. You got a bunch of people that are calling out Donald Trump, I think rightly so, but are they calling out this Justice Department for this? No, because January 6th is involved, and it's really weird. And so you have this strange moment where the leftist mainstream media, the legacy media, cannot be honest about something that's happening here because it would expose their bias from previous times. So they're kind of backing the government because it's the same people that were doing the work of the government on January 6th, hence the video we started with. So we're in this weird spot where, if you're being honest, nobody should trust anybody of these people. You should be screwed. You should have scrutiny and skepticism, including about me. But I'm just going to show you these documents, and I will link them in the comments for those of you who want to read them. We're going to wrap up with this because I do think it's problematic in a big, big way. This is a New Year's Eve filing that came from the DOJ. Okay. And their claim is essentially that Brian Cole Jr. must be retained in government custody because he's super dangerous. And that they didn't just try to avoid normal due process and give the man a preliminary hearing, that they went to a superior court and not the district court. And all that was totally normal because what they were doing is they were just trying to get justice served and keep a really dangerous guy away from the American public, even though that dangerous guy has been walking around for 5 years since and never done anything even similar. That none of his neighbors believe he's the guy. His family members don't believe he's the guy. The people on the FBI task force that I've heard from do not believe he's the guy. Dan Bongino does not believe that Brian Cole Jr. is the guy. You know how I know? Because he went on Fox and he said exactly the most problematic thing. I'm pretty comfortable that we got the right guy. And you're going to be pretty comfortable. And then he went out and told you in his sum up last tweet of the year, last tweet as deputy director, I'm about to leave this role and I'm going to transition back to being a podcast shit talker. Guess what? He talked about fentanyl. He talked about top 10 most wanted seizures. He talked about a bunch of arrests of illegal aliens. You know what he didn't say? One of my proudest moments is cracking this, or being part of cracking the case against the J6 pipe bomber. One of my original priorities of coming into office and finding out who was involved in the so-called Fedsurrection. Did you notice that too? People tell you an awful lot. Sometimes they say more without saying something at all. When things are conspicuously absent, I think we can be very skeptical of that. And he even left the door open to say, look, I told you it was just chapter 1 of 20 chapters. It's not my fault. Like, I'm not even there anymore. I'm just a podcaster. I'm just paid for my opinion now. I used to get paid for the facts. That's when I had to say things that were like, this might be a lie. Now I can just say whatever I want. It's full on BS. And I got a whole army of fart huffers that are going to be behind me. And no matter what I say, they're going to cheer. Rawr, he's our guy. Make gladiator videos. If you guys didn't see the very embarrassing gladiator meme video, truly damaging. And Epstein totally killed himself. I've seen the file, not the video, by the way. The video was doctored, but I've seen the file, and that's how I know. I mean, how do you recover from that? How do you recover from that? You don't. You go out there and you threaten a bunch of people. A couple of things I wanted to cover in this case because I think it's worth you guys seeing. There's a court listener. I'm going to link this for you as well. Let me see if there's an update on this at all. Not on this particular setup. This was last updated January 2nd. This may be this particular link from the court listener, which is going to give you some of the orders. This minute order I thought was actually kind of interesting. So this is an order from the judge on January the 2nd. I'm waiting to see more shoes drop, more information drop about Brian Cole Jr. The only thing that I think is positive, despite the fact that we've seen a lapse in the statute of limitations at midnight last night, is that we do see a defense team that seems to be really interested in getting work done. And that is not always the case. And that was the fear that we had, that they weren't going to go full bore on this case. Like we saw kind of like a limp-wristed start. And so this is better. So here's the minute order as it relates to Brian Cole Jr. The court has reviewed the party's submission on the issue of whether it should accept the indictment. Remember, they went to a superior court, which is kind of like going to the local court instead of going to the normal federal court, which is the district court in D.C. Whether they should accept the indictment returned by the superior court grand jury pursuant to D.C. Code 11-1916A. As previously noted, Chief Judge Boasberg, recently upheld the legality of this approach based on the D.C. code provision in United States versus Stewart. I'm skipping ahead. And then he stayed the ruling pending appeal, stating that the public interest lies in letting the appeals court or the Court of Appeals decide this issue before the government moves forward on both this case and in similar fashion on other cases. The problem is they're actually not all that related. The Stewart case, and this is something the defense made a great argument about, was one where they got no bill, as I understand it, no true bill from the federal grand jury, and then they tried to run around. In this one, they just didn't even want to present their case. In the case of Brian Cole Jr., they refused to present their case, even though they had a grand jury that was seated until December the 19th. They arrested him on December the 4th. And then for those next 2.5 weeks, apparently the government just like sat on their thumbs or played tiddlywinks or something and didn't go after to get an indictment, probably because what they had was garbage. And even that confession was not particularly confidence inspiring. And my evidence of that is people have come to me from mainstream media, and all of you who saw that press conference with Janine Pirro, Pam Bondi, and Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and all this stuff, all of that was nonsensical. It was like a big high-fiving, and it was very, very light on information, evidence, or enough for anyone to go like, obviously they did it right. It all looked like a setup to me. And having Dan walk out before this blows up in their faces, it's still going to hit him. He's still going to be in the blast radius, even if he's a podcast guy. And I think that's something we have to remember. In any case, quite interesting to see that they ran this route, and the judge basically says, yeah, there's basically no reason why I should be doing this, and the government's not doing things that are correct, and then I'm just going to go ahead and side with the government because the presumption of innocence is gone in this country. I'm editorializing on there. The one thing that I did notice, which was very, very interesting, and I want you guys to be aware of this as well. Let's show another filing. Here's one from 1-3. This is how I know, I'm sorry, hold on, let's put it back here. 1-3, this is how I know that the defense is aggressively pursuing what should be done, and I think this is encouraging for people who care any bit about justice whatsoever. This is a emergency motion for review by the magistrate order. They're looking to basically appeal above the magistrate judge who made the decision that you saw that minute order, and they're asking the next level up to evaluate whether or not. He says they have legitimately legal errors in the magistrate judge's order, and so they are appealing this to go above and beyond. They are asking that people basically do what they are required to do. And it says the magistrate judge has 2 legal errors. It conditionally accepts the Superior Court indictment without offering any legal analysis as to the validity. And then it uses a conditional acceptance on the basis to keep Mr. Cole detained beyond the time permitted under federal law. The time for establishing probable cause has already expired. And now you are doing irreparable harm for every hour that he remains detained. And for me, this is something that I think a lot of J6ers can recognize as well. So it is related to that story. This is the same district where we saw an unfair play out. That doesn't mean there are not some people that were at January 6th that didn't belong in prison. Some of them are going to find their way back to prison. Some already have because they were already predisposed or made certain decisions that would lead them to be imprisoned anyway. And that's fine. I think the government made tactical errors, and the government's answer to the government was those pardons. So Donald Trump was correct in that, even if he gave blanket pardons to people like Jake Lang, who I think is a piece of garbage. But all that being said, Jake Lang was wronged as much as anybody else because he was part of a zealous and vicious cycle that a predetermined outcome, the government affirmed that the government's outcome was going to be affirmed by the government. That's the only way I can say it. This defense submission here is encouraging in so much as they are pursuing it rather than just rolling over and taking it. And so I'm pleased about all of that. And I want to show you something else that makes me a little bit concerned. And I think it should concern you as well. This is the press release from DOJ. This is like the last little thing I want you to hone in on as you consider the coverage of Brian Cole and you consider the people who are involved in it and sort of the theatrical nonsense that you're seeing. They are politically approaching this in a way that is not common for other cases. And I'll give you one example from very recently. So here we go. This is released December the 4th. This is the press release from DOJ. Man charged, I'm going to highlight something to you right here. Charged for planting explosive devices outside the RNC and the DNC on January 5th, 2021. The word "for" is critical and relevant. He's not charged with the planting of those devices, and then you go on to say that he is alleged to have done something. If you charge someone with a crime, it's different than charging them for the crime. For presumes that they did it. And I know it's a little linguistic play, but I want you to key in on this for a second. Brian J. Cole Jr., 30, Woodbridge, Virginia, was arrested this morning and charged for transporting and planting of 2 improvised explosive devices on January 6th. What you don't hear is that he allegedly did anything. They don't use the word allegedly. He's charged in a complaint unsealed with transporting. See, with is how you charge people, not for. And that's a subtle nuance. But as you scroll down through the rest of this press release and you read about, this is right after that press conference, so this is all the high-fiving that they did and they quoted the thing. What you get down to is there's a redacted criminal complaint. There's the contact information for DOJ media. And that's it, folks. I'm going to contrast that with something else. This is the New Year's Eve guide that I told you Steve Friend did a really nice job covering yesterday. FBI disrupts alleged New Year's Eve attack. Man charged with attempting to provide material support to ISIS. Do you want to see the difference? Charged for, charged with. Okay? Language matters when we are talking about issues of legality. And when you presume guilt, which is what they are doing with that term charged for, you'll even notice that as you get further into this, Justice Department, United States Attorney's Office, Western District of North Carolina announced that a Mint Hill, North Carolina allegedly planned to use knives. This man allegedly planned to use knives and execute a deadly attack. Okay? The complaint was filed. It was unsealed. He appeared in court, blah, 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 blah. You know what they do on every single DOJ press release that I've seen? I've seen it so many times that I actually ignore it, but I went back to the Brian Cole Jr. one and I noticed it was missing. Let me show you. This is the bottom of it. It ends with saying this investigation is being conducted by the FBI Washington Field Office, Capitol Police, Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, all the people that are potential co-conspirators in a potential, controversy or a conspiracy involved. That's the thing we've been talking about. They're all complicit. And then you've got the Metropolitan PD. One of the Metropolitan PD guys seemed like he might be aware of what was going on, finished his sandwich after he was notified there was a pipe bomb within blast radius of him. United States Attorney's Office, which went after all the J6ers. I mean, all of these people, if you were going to say, who would the conspiracy involve? What agencies would they be? They would be the ones that are involved in conducting the investigation into Brian Cole Jr. And again, you end with just nothing but media contact. You guys ready for the difference? Here's the difference. Let's scroll to the bottom, all the way down. Here's the press relief. Oh, he worshipped Allah, Bahala, Cross, blah, 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 blah. All this stuff. Very long press release. They took a bunch of photos. Really, really good. There's something quite interesting on this. This case is being prosecuted by the United States Attorney, Robert Gleason, Western District of North Carolina, DOJ trial attorney, National Security Division Counterterrorism. The charges against the defendant are merely allegations, and the defendant is presumed innocent unless proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt in a court of law. Let me show you what that looks like. If you're watching on your phone, it would look like that. The charges against the defendant are merely allegations. The defendant will always be presumed guilty. Why is that missing from Brian Cole Jr.'s press announcement? It is DOJ policy that it should be there because they are not presuming innocence. And I don't think they ever expected this to go anywhere. I don't think they ever expect to have the defendant against rigorous defense. I don't think they thought serious lawyers were going to take on this case. I see a drastic differential in language from the outset. That's going back to December the 4th. He's charged for planting, not charged with planting. Now, it could just be an administrative error, and there is no legal boundary that says because you did not put the presumption of innocence, but it is policy, and it is the United States functional, understanding of our justice system going back to the 1890s. In 1895, the Coffin decision from the United States Supreme Court presumed that is a bedmark principle of American justice, that you are presumed innocent. And as a presumed innocent person, the government should not presume that you are so dangerous that you can't have a preliminary hearing and side with the government so that they don't have to show probable cause to put somebody behind bars. I got a real problem with the way that they are running this. And it's not simply because I think my friend is right. I see things materially different, and the way that even their language is going tells you that we've got an issue here. And people should not feel comfortable with this. Regular people should not feel comfortable. A lot of it comes down to people who are media thirsty and really want to win so desperately, as my buddy Steve Friend said, they're so thirsty for a win for daddy, aka Donald Trump, that they are willing to go out and just be buffoons. Here is Kash Patel. I started the show like this. I'm going to end it. I was hollering off screen for lights. If you listen and turn up your audio right now, you will hear people that are doing the media presentation for Patel, because he's obviously doing it remotely, going on Fox and Friends, and they're screaming in the background to try to make him look good. This is the clown show. This is actually what I see. The machinations are obvious to those of us that are paying attention. Sometimes it bleeds through where the American people can see it too, and you can see it happening on Fox right now. By the way, this is A+, 100% grade A prime knob slobbery by Kash Patel, taking credit for the grab of Maduro, because obviously the FBI gets credit too.
Day is today, but I want to talk about the FBI's role in especially transporting the leader of Venezuela.
Hey, it's great to be with you this morning, and thanks so much. Yes, the FBI's Critical Incident Response Group, CIRG, runs our tactical, aviation, and specialized operation units to include our hostage rescue team. And thankfully, this mission, orchestrated by President Trump, his courageous, decisive decision to lead us through this with the Department of War and our intelligence community, saw mission success because every component of this operation, every link in this chain was flawlessly executed by the experts in the intelligence community and law enforcement and military sectors, and we were proud to be a part of it.
Best day is today, but I want to talk about the FBI's role in especially transporting the leader of Venezuela.
Hey, it's great to be.
It's really funny to me. Anyway, if you wondered why I was yelling off camera, that's what I was doing right there. Okay, I will give you one last little piece of evidence too, and I don't want to end it on there. This was never about fentanyl, and we should always know that. And so here's Rand Paul saying the opposite of what Lindsey Graham was saying. Sometimes it's nice to hear reasonable voices. I don't love very many people in D.C. I don't love Rand Paul either. But sometimes you just look and go, well, at least somebody's telling us the truth. So I have to occasionally go, yep, that sounds right. There's no fentanyl mentioned in the indictment. We could do that another time. Let's just punch this up real quickly, just to debunk anybody that's out there in the world that thinks that this was somehow about Kash Patel's fentanyl focus, which is why he went to Chinese. He wasn't getting orders from Chinese government officials and telling them what they expected for the money they gave him. He was going there specifically because he was trying to stop fentanyl trafficking, and that's the reason why we had to go into Venezuela. Fentanyl, which doesn't come from Venezuela.
Number one, there is no fentanyl made in Venezuela. Not just a little bit, there's none being made in Venezuela. These are outboard boats that, in order for them to get to Miami, would have to stop and refuel 20 times. They're in all likely going to Trinidad and Tobago, which is an island right off of the coast of Venezuela. So there's a lot of reasons to be worried about this. But number one is the broader principle of when can you kill people indiscriminately? When you're at war. That's why when we declare war, it's supposed to be done by Congress. It's supposed to be thoughtful. It's supposed to be debated. And we're not supposed to do it willy-nilly. And then when you have war, you just kill people in the war zone. And even then there are rules of engagement. But interdicting drugs has always been a criminal activity and a criminal anti-crime sort of activity where we don't just summarily execute people. We actually present evidence and convict them.
Yeah, that's how it's supposed to go, but that's not what's going on. We are in a post-constitutional experience, which is why I have frustrations all the time. And I thought we were going to make America constitutional again. I thought that's kind of what the MAGA meant, but apparently not. Anyway, you guys are watching the Kyle Seraphin Show. I appreciate all of you. I hope that you give us a like. If you're watching on Rumble, if you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and punch that thumbs up. That'd be fantastic. If you guys are watching on X, do the same thing, but it doesn't really matter because we're kind of stifled over there. If you're watching and you're new to the program, subscribe. You can also hit notifications if you want to watch us live, and you can avoid all of the live ads because I don't think there's any ads other than the ones I read, which are not super substantial. They happen 9:30 Eastern time. That's when it goes live, and sometimes with or without a minute or so on the other side. And then watch us over at KyleSeraphinShow.com if you want the replay. You can actually even control the ads there, and you can fast forward through them if you like. If you watch them, it's great. If you don't, it's okay too. KyleSeraphinShow.com. Get us on Spotify. You guys will have a better user experience. For all of you Apple Podcast users, you've never made the switch, getting the video is a game changer. Everyone who does it will respond and give me a comment saying good things about it. Anyway, like the program, subscribe, share it with a friend, even better. Hand it off to somebody else who might want to see some things, who needs just like an open mind and doesn't want to do mouthpiece, cheerleading, whoring, whatever it's called. I got something funny. It's totally unpolitical. It's just a discussion about men's names. So sometimes we focus inordinately on what men think and how men do things. And so those of you guys that have names like this, you guys know who you are. Feel free. This is a former professional football player turned actor turned Instagram comedian. It's quite funny, only because this is actually how regular dudes talk. Not only do we say shit-talking things about each other and the things that we've said, but sometimes we also just make up no reason whatsoever to pick a fight with somebody. Here's no reason fighting over 10 names that are not strong.
Here's a list of 10 skinny-sounding names. Number 1, Timmy. Almost rhymes with skinny. Felix. If you're not a cat, you're a skinny man. Oliver.
Please, sir, I want more.
Irwin. Enough said. Timothy, but it has 2 E's at the end and one of those foreign apostrophes over one of them. Bound to be skinny. On the note of foreign whites, Pierre. And basically every other Frenchman. Let's move over to some Americans, shall we? Samuel. If you chose to stay Samuel in your adult years, you're likely skinny. It's not hard to just go to Sam. Sammy would have been a step up. He'd be fun. Maybe he'd play sports. I don't know why, but Samuel also has a skinny neck. Elongated. Quincy. Eugene. Could have gone by Gene. Hackman wasn't bad. This one's a sleeper, but Ethan. There's some good ones out there. Hawk, one of them. But he was a thespian. Likely was beat up often. Too skinny. I've known a lot of Ethans beat up in my life. If you have any of these names, you are likely skinny. Tag a skinny friend with one of these names below. And if there's a buff one, tag them below as well. I'm very open-minded and willing to change it, but it's highly unlikely that will happen. Hasn't happened in a long time.
That's my general rule too. If you disagree with something that I said today's program, tell me why, make a good argument for it, and I'm open to changing my mind. It hasn't happened in a long time. But it could happen. You could be the person that changed my mind about something that I said. It's so stupid. I have a best friend who sounds exactly like that, and he deadpans me with stuff like that all the time, and he's constantly, it'll come out of nowhere too. We'll be talking about like going to dinner, and he'll be like, let me tell you some things that are bothering me. Skinny guy names. It's like, Carl, what? But he's a strong Carl. His name is Carl with a K, which is a strong way to do that. So anyway, shout out to my buddy Carl. Hopefully I'll see him. Maybe we'll do a workout this week. God bless all of you guys. This has been amusing for me. I continue to have fun. Even those people who were hating on yesterday's show, I don't mind. Let's just like present some alternative ideas. Don't take anything at face value. Take it with skepticism and then see where it shakes out. All right. I'll see you guys again tomorrow. Stick around if you want to see the American Radicals podcast over on Rumble. We'll raid that chat, and you guys will be able to see my buddy Steve Friend as he moves into these bite-sized, kind of like 35, 40-minute lunch hour moves on the East Coast. All right. See you tomorrow.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.
The worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
Fucking hey, man. Glad to see you guys.
Good evening. 150 days since the worst single act of political violence since the Civil War.
January 6th was worse than 9/11.
Worst act of political violence since the Civil War.
The likes of which I don't think has existed since the Civil War.
I think we're in the most perilous point in time since the advent of the Civil War.
I do too.
The worst attack against America's democracy probably since the Civil War.
Unprecedented, at least since the Civil War.
The worst attack on our republic since the Civil War.
The fact is that we faced on January 6th the most serious attack on our democracy probably since the Civil War. This is as fraught